I'll just go ahead and start. What this is, this is actually Dorothy, who is right here today. She showed me this a couple of weeks ago or so, maybe 3 weeks ago. This, and maybe at the end of it, I definitely want her to share hers. But this is just a very simple extender to hold your mask. So what it does is when you crochet it, of course, to whatever length, but it seems to be a universal size. And using the elastic ends, you put these on. Of course, you put it on over your head first, but this actually helps to take the tension off of your ears. And it's cute, and it's just something that you can use. It's especially for if you're using a mask for a long-term wear. It's not easy to take off and on like a regular lanyard, which I plan to show a mask lanyard. Next time we crochet, we're going to do one that is so you can hang it off your neck. But so today we're going to do this one. And what I have is this was made out of this size, this type of yarn. I think this is a size 3 yarn, I believe. So it's that nice crochet cotton. I bought these. I'll have to, you wouldn't believe these. I got a set of 24 colors, small skein, very small skeins, which is great for these kinds of projects. And you get a wonderful array of colors to have to make these. And this kind of crochet cotton is nice because I have 24 colors and they can give them away as gifts or put them in the mail. So what you need is your cotton, but if you have just regular, this is the, I'm trying to remember the brand. This is the stuff you get at Walmart. It's a little thicker. It's still cotton. Oh, what's the name? Let me make sure.
Is it the Aunt Lydia's or
Aunt Lydia's? Yes. Now,
or sugar and cream, either one.
It's real thick, yeah.
Thank you. It's a lot thicker.
3. This one that I bought happened to have been number 3, so.
Okay, perfect.
I accidentally got the right thing, but this is Lion brand, and it's just regular, I don't know, thin yarn.
Perfect. That's great.
I've got that too.
Okay, so everybody has thin, but I just want, if you didn't have thin, like for people who don't have that, they just have some regular weight, the normal weight. You would just use like a number of, depending on how tight you want your stitches to be. It's not easy to do it on a smaller hook, but you can do it. This was done on the number 3. I would have preferred to have the number 3.5, but I didn't have it. So you can go to a 4, and that would just give you a little looser stitch, like I'm doing a little granny square here. That would just kind of a looser and more stretchy stitch, actually. So, depending on how tight you want your stitch, just use the appropriate crochet hook. And today I'm going to use, these were on a 2.5, just so you know, 2.5. And I'm going to try doing a 3 today using this cotton because I just think it's easier it'll be easier for me to show you. It's so easy. I mean, I think if you haven't, if you have to let me know. I know that Dorothy's crocheted, and Perry, have you crocheted as well?
I have crocheted. I'm not,
okay.
I'm not very good at making things crocheting.
Okay.
I'm better at knitting.
You have the basics though,
I do.
And
I made one just to play around, but I think it's way too long looking at yours. I'm gonna go completely around my neck.
That'll make a nice
I could just cut it in half, I'd have 2 of them.
That's
so
right. Yeah. And Elaine, you have the basic crochet stitches down too? Are you pretty familiar, Elaine? Yep. Okay, so
I'm a left-hander.
Okay, so I'm going to put these little guys away. So the things you usually need when you're doing this, you need some kind of place to iron. I love these little quilt pressing felts because I can, do small projects. A couple of buttons. Now, if you don't have, like I've had these buttons, I bought them. They're so cute. They're real lightweight and they're made out of wood, but they're painted. But also I made buttons out of air dry clay. We did this a couple of months ago. We used air dry clay to make some things. And so I found that you can make buttons also with air dry clay, which might be another project we can do together, especially for making handmade things like bags and other things. So those are a way, but if you have 2 spare buttons somewhere big enough so that you can put your mask elastic around, and I'm going to just move these aside. So I kind of have my camera really close so that you can see, and I'm hoping it does okay. I just want to show you, it's going to do it with a larger one just because. But well, let's do it with a small since we all have the same length. And I'll use red because red is easier to see. So I just kind of learned something, and you probably already know this. If you don't, forgive me. But I learned how to make a slip knot for the first time. But for just a quick tutorial on a slip knot, if you don't already know, you want to make a tail. It's about 7 inches long, and you just bring the tail over to make a loop. Okay, I'm just showing it on the table for illustration purposes. You can do this in the air as well if you feel, comfortable. But you take your loop, which is over. So we have our loop. And now I'm going to take my loop and put it under to make a pretzel. So you can see, you have to make a pretzel. Now this, you don't have to spend so much time doing this, but I just want to show you how this works. So that one loop that went over and the other is behind. And what I'm going to do to make my slip knot is I'm just going to pick this right at this first little hole here, this little piece of thread. I'm going to take this, and you can see I'm making a slip knot right now. Okay, so now that, and if you haven't done this before, I was so excited to learn this. I don't know why I didn't do it before, but there I've got my slip knot, and I can start my stitching. So we're ready to go, and I'm going to leave a nice long tail because I might want to sew things later, or sew in my stitching. So on this one, it was about 21 to make this size. That's about 3.5 to 4 inches long. I made about 21 chain stitches to start. So why don't we go ahead and do 21 or 22? It depends on how loose your chain stitches are, but let's go ahead and just do a chain stitch 21 times. So we count, say 1, 2, 3, 4. And Dorothy, is that about how many you had done? Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, that's much thinner yarn than I used. So
Okay.
I used about 15, but for a bigger one, 20.
Yeah.
With the bigger yarn, with the thicker yarn.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
that looks great.
So about 20 to 21, depending on how long you want. Just go
It's
ahead
pretty
and do.
forgiving. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. You can kind of measure it. Just take an eyeball. You're not really making this much longer than your original length. It's just like maybe an inch longer. So mine's a little bit long because I've made a loose stitch. I usually do a smaller hook than this. This will be actually, this is a number 3, and I think I would have gone a 2.5, which I think is in the bottom. Let me grab
I
that.
made one for my husband, and it was probably twice. It wasn't
Twice
quite
as long.
big as Perry's, but
Right.
like Perry's,
Right.
but somewhere
There's
in
the
there.
champion one, yeah. It's a mighty big head. So 21, you said?
20 to 21. So
Okay.
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna redo mine. I'm gonna use my 2.5 needle because this is just the 3 might just be too
I'm
sloppy.
using a 2.5. It's
2.5
hard
is
to do.
about right. Yeah. So I'm just gonna
I
back
just
up. a little.
bought these big handles. They're supposed to be for arthritic hands. I don't have arthritic hands, but it certainly made it easier, I guess, but it's
Yeah.
hard to see the numbers.
Yeah. Now, does anyone have you ever heard of those mag eyes? Have you heard of mag eyes?
No.
Oh, I'll show them at the end of this. I've
Do they
got.
have light on it?
They have they're magnifying devices that were hands-free.
Oh.
They're really nice.
Okay,
It's
I've
just
seen
gonna-
some that have a light, but I haven't seen that with the magnifier.
7. Okay, I'm just going to count mine up. That's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So got 20 here, and I think that's probably long enough. I might just do 1 for good measure, just to have a little different size, because they vary. So I've got a nice little chain, nice little even chain going. And all we're doing is we're going to be single crocheting all the way around. And so if you just take your crochet hook and insert it into the first available chain stitch, and then just make a single crochet, and then just single crochet into each chain stitch going to the end of the chain. And with this, I'm sure I'm going to just show the single crochet stitch to people to people who haven't seen this video or they will come to it and they don't know what a
I just
single
want to make sure I'm doing it right.
stitch is. Basically, a single crochet is you insert the needle into the first available stitch and you yarn over and pull it through that stitch and then you yarn over and pull. That's a single crochet. Am I right or is that wrong?
Okay, that's what I was doing.
right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I haven't done it in so long.
Right. No, so that's why I'm glad I'm kind of going over the basic. So basically, we'll do it again. We slip our needle into the front, from the front to the back of our the next available chain stitch. Yarn over, and I always yarn over from the back, going towards me,
Sure.
from left to right, or sorry, right to left over the hook. And I'm going to pull it through the chain stitch. And then I have 2 loops. I'll yarn over and I'll pull the hook right through those 2. And that is one completed chain stitch or single crochet. So I'll just now we continue through the whole thing
Mhm.
throughout the length. And I should get my mag eyes. I'll tell you, I'm going to go grab them for a second because I'm struggling as I have my hands under the camera. Let me just quickly grab that. And I have a tether, I have a microphone, so it's going to take a second because I'm tethered to this thing. But keep continuing on your chain stitch creating or single crochet. And here's the mag eyes. I'm going to show you this thing. See what those are? Those go over your head like a visor.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my
And
husband
they have a little
uses that.
magnifying. See that little? They're very handy.
That is.
And you can
Okay.
get different levels of, magnification. And they're just really great to work with. All right, so I'm going to go back into that. Of course, right, I'm not going to do that with the camera. Normally I could do it, but not with the camera there. So I'll just get through this. All right, we'll go through all of these stitches. And, to have the tension on your thread is pretty consistently as you can is probably, pretty important, is to just keep that tension the same if you can. And it takes practice, and that's what's great about these little mask holders is you can practice your stitch creating. Just you can see how the stitches come out in this very simple, very non-complex design, but getting just the movement of your stitches and the consistency to get that nice look that you're looking for.
I saw one pattern that used half double crochet.
Oh, so a half so it has a little bit more stretch then, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't try it. I just kept doing the single crochet, but
yeah.
it's an option,
Yeah, that's good. And it'd be fun too to try some fun little, like a popcorn or something, something
Oh,
fun to
yeah.
give it texture. But
And
We're
in
gonna
fact, some of them did use a popcorn as the instead of a button.
no, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
If you don't have a button, that's a nice idea. What else would be great is maybe putting on the ends of these, putting some little, what are those things called? Lobster hooks, those jewelry lobster hooks?
Oh, yeah.
Because those would hold it very nice, make it
Yeah.
nice and firm.
When you get to the end of
Yeah.
the row,
Yeah.
do you do a chain and turn around, or do you just turn around?
I do, I just turn around, but it does tend to kind of curl a little. So I think a chain, what do you do, Dorothy?
No,
You just
no,
wanna-
not turn around. You're going around and around.
Yeah, exactly. We're going around in a loop.
Work
yes.
on the other opposite side,
Right.
now.
I
So
gotta
you just
turn
go
it
into
to
the
do that.
next available chain, basically.
There is no more. I'm at the end of the row.
Right,
Yes.
and you're gonna work on the opposite end.
Right.
You're just gonna go around it.
So I'm almost at the end of mine too.
Oh,
and
I'm going around this way.
Yes.
So you're
You're
gonna
just
go
going
around.
in a counterclockwise position. Yes, you're going, so you won't be
So
turning.
am I gonna do the ends here? There's no crochets to do in there.
So what will happen is right now I'm at my very last, I'm at my slip knot.
Okay.
Okay,
what do you
so I'm just going to continue. I'm turning, I'm not,
Well,
I
I
could
put
make-
two.
Oh,
in
turn it
each
you could
upside
put two,
down.
yes,
Yeah.
in your last stitch, make
Right.
2 single crochets,
Mhm.
In your
and
last
then you can
stitch.
proceed on the other side. Just pick up the other end of that stitch that, the single crochet that you have. There's it's usually one little strand, and you can just pick that up and start continuing through those. That's how I do it. I mean, I think maybe if there's another way, you could probably go through, maybe grab deeper, but I'm just going through that little single thread that's
Mhm.
available.
Yeah, it's pretty forgiving
Oh,
when you get
okay.
it all together.
Yeah.
Right.
So you'll notice
I
that you're
forgot to do that.
it's curling a little and stuff, but that's okay. That's what an iron is for.
Okay.
So just go into all of your, and my glasses are off. That's my problem. I took my glasses off and I was wondering, why can't I see? Well, yeah.
I'm also trying to hide the tail, so.
Yeah, we won't worry about the tail. Will leave for a while. Just that's okay, because the button
Oh,
usually
okay.
will take
And
us.
I'll tell you what, I am lazy, and sometimes I leave the tail long enough to sew the button on, then you don't
There
have
you
to
go.
hide so much.
That's a great
Okay.
idea too. What I do is I just take that tail and use a crochet needle and just kind of, while I'm sewing the button on, I kind of weave it into the,
Yeah, that's a
kind
good
of
idea.
keeps it all,
Okay.
because you'll have a tail on both ends basically.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to go around, and I'm just not seeing it. I'm trying to get in
Harder
there.
to see where you're putting the stitch on this side.
Right, it's finding that one thread. It's like there's that one little single thread that I didn't use on the first one, or so it's a little harder. But once you get this first 2 rows done, or make your round around 100% around it, then it's much easier, because then you can find the stitches
Yeah,
much easier.
that's true.
And this really only takes, if I wasn't fumbling around like this, I found that it took about 15 minutes to make them, 15,
Mhm.
20 minutes.
Yeah. Plus the fact I haven't done it in, I'm telling you, like at least 30 years. So
Yeah.
it's been really, really, it's really hard for me.
So how you feeling that you've got the stitches okay?
I got the stitches okay. I mean, I know what to do once I figured out that you have to go
Yeah.
around the end, but yeah, but it's just getting my hands to work that way. That's all.
Right. I know it's kind of a dance, right? We've got our left fingers and our right
Yeah.
hand. Everybody
too many
crochets
fingers.
differently, of course. Like my grandmother taught me how to crochet, and she was she crocheted till the end. And this was her, because I watched her, and I don't know, I just noticed that other people crochet differently, but it all goes to the same place, right?
Right. And my grandmother taught me to crochet as well. My grandfather taught me how to knit.
Oh, wow, that's
was-
fantastic.
Yeah, I was a knitter more than a
Oh.
crocheter. So crocheting I could do simple things, but I couldn't do anything too complex.
Years ago, I think when I was in high school, before I started crocheting bathing suits, I was crocheting jewelry with beads. I would feed the beads on and make ropes. So when we get to our end, let's see, can't tell where that is. Okay, I still have some stitches to go, one more stitch. And then you go ahead, and when you get to the very end, you just put 2 stitches on the end. So like right now I'm at the end, so I'm going to put 2 stitches into that end side. Is that what you do, Dorothy?
Yes.
Yeah, and then just go ahead, proceed again. Now that you've made your 2 stitches, now you'll find that going around is much easier, because you'll find your next, see, I've got my next available stitch. It's just much easier to see. Now it's just easy from now on. And we want all we need to do is do at least 2 rows. So this one is gone. I'm going into my second row now on this side, and then I'll go another row on that side, and I'll tie it off, and then we'll do sew the buttons, and we'll be done.
So how many rows total are you doing?
Really, basically only 4 rows.
4 rows. Okay.
But if you want to go bigger, because it depends, like this one is only 2 rows with slip stitch around, this thicker yarn, 2 rows with a slip stitch, that's all. And I slip stitch all of these because I like to reinforce it a little bit. So then we're going to do a final slip stitch around the end, just to give it a little more kind of beefs it up a little bit.
Mhm. I'll have to see what that looks like.
Okay. And it's a kind of a nice way to sort of finish off things. We're in our, so we're like in our third, this is our, basically our third row. We're doing. And if you find that you skip one, just, back, take it out. I've done that before. Like, oops, I skipped something. And then I have to go back and pick up where, to get everything even. Because these seem to like to be nice and pretty much the same tension and the same, you don't want to skip holes unless you intended to do that, make a pattern, of course.
I see what you mean, that it gets easier once you've done those first 2 rows.
Right, right. Yeah, the first are a little bit of a struggle, and then it's like, okay, now it's like riding a bicycle. We've got it.
Mhm. I see also how it makes a nice round edge.
Yes, doing that.
Yours did. Mine was more square. Mine was just going back and forth, not around.
Yeah. Now, when you see that, when you iron this, you can block it. With you could even use some fabric starch if you want. I just use water, but I'll show you how I'll block it.
Okay.
I'm just going to I'll get that. I'm now at the very end of this one, so I'm going to put 2, kind of at the end. Yeah, I'm going to put 2 stitches in that, and then I'll just proceed. Now I'm at we're making our round to the last row. Kind of turn the corner. And just make those, it's so peaceful, it's so relaxing to do this. And I like it that you can talk to people while you're doing it. Some other things with this, you don't have to count out things,
Yeah.
The first thing you count out is only the very beginning. And then after that, you don't have to worry.
That's one reason I started crocheting. I love to read and I read all the time, but I get lost in the book and I won't listen if people are talking. So I can watch TV and talk to my husband and still crochet.
Exactly. And you're using your hands. And this is so good for our brains. I know it's like what people say, oh, well, people who crochet, well, it's the older people that crochet and knit. Well, that's actually not true, because there's many people who crochet and knit when they're young, but it's such a great activity for our brains as we get older.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to make things that are useful. And it's like crocheting is sort of like crafting with a purpose. You've got something that you can create that's useful.
Knitting is too, but I'm not good at knitting. I can just do very basic.
And knitting has always been a challenge for me because there's just too many parts. It's like, eating with chopsticks. It's just so many parts.
Well, if you make a mistake with crochet, it's easy to take it out and get back to fix it. But for me, knitting was not easy to fix.
Yeah.
And see, for me, knitting, I needed like cables and I needed patterns and I needed all kinds of things to make it a challenge, because otherwise it was boring if you just knit.
Right. That makes sense. Now, so I'm at the very end of my row. I've got my last stitch. I haven't pulled it through yet. I mean, I'm at the very end, but I'm still haven't made that curve yet. Haven't gone all the way. So I'll make one more single stitch or one more single crochet. And then after that, we're going to slip stitch all the way around. So the slip stitch, now that I'm at the end, I can see one more.
You've already done your 4 rows?
I've done my 4 rows. How is everybody
I'm
doing?
on the 4th row. Okay.
So what we have now is we have 4 rows, basically 2 on each side of that center. And this is a nice size, but we could go, if you wanted to go another row, if you want it thicker, we can do another row. What do you think? Because right now we're at about, it's a little more, it's like 5/8 of an inch. So we could go another one to make it thicker. But if we do a slip stitch, it's just going to add a little bit to it, a little bit of. So
okay.
let's for purposes of getting it going and started and finished, let's go ahead and do our slip stitches around this for the 4 rows. But if you wanted to do 6, that would give you more a wider wider lanyard, or not lanyard, extender. So now I'm going to start slip stitching, and basically what that is I'm going to into the first available stitch. I have these double rows here. I'm just going to yarn over, and I'm just going to pull all the way through all of the 2 loops. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go into the next stitch, yarn over, and pull through all of them. You see, so that kind of, this will sort of tighten things up. And it may look like it's going to curl more, but that's okay because we will iron and block it out. And this slip stitching is it's nice and fast, and it just will give a little bit more body to this, a little more weight. I just lost my stitch. There we go. We'll just go all the way around until we meet, till we come back to where we started the slip stitching. This cotton is so nice. It's I don't know if it comes from China, where it comes from, but boy, it's a beautiful cotton, and it's actually, it's easier to crochet with than the Aunt Lydia's, which tends to kind of ravel a little bit. So this seems to me have a tighter, it's twisted a little bit tighter, so it's got a pretty
Yeah,
nice.
the Aunt Lydia's can split a little on you.
Yeah, it just doesn't have that. It's nice stuff for the price.
Mhm.
I love this stuff.
I have red heart here that I didn't use it because I couldn't get the whole ball opened.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's so frustrating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, sometimes you're like, spending half the time trying to untangle the yarn, right?
Well, so I figured I better just use the yarn rather than the cotton.
Yeah. We'll just slip stitch all the way, and try to keep if you find yourself a little too tight, just loosen your tension a little bit, just so that it doesn't get too tight. Having a bigger bigger hook right now might be a good idea too, if you find that you're still giving it too much tension. And just go all the way around.
Completely, not just this row.
Right, just completely, all the way to meet back at the where we started the slip stitching.
Okay.
You'll
And why do
notice-
you do that? Just to
Just
add a
to
little
kind of
more-
give it it kind of gives it a finished edge. You can see here on that, see how this one has a little bit of a raised
Right.
edge. It just looks more finished, I think. And it
Okay.
feels, I don't know if Dorothy, I'd like to, hear what you do at the end of yours, but that's kind of how I
It
do-
does give it a nice finish. Yeah.
Yeah. Just gives it a little bit more of the body, that it needs, especially if this is going to be something that you wear all day. You don't want it to stretch out too much, whoever's wearing it. I think this would be a great thing to send to nurses. And
Yes, my nephew is a PA and his wife is a nurse, and I sent to them
wonderful, because that would be so nice, because they have to wear wear masks
all the time. Yeah.
for long shifts,
Mhm.
not just for little 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of around. I'm kind of in the last. Got maybe 10 more stitches to go, and then I'll just tie it off.
How frequently do you run these classes?
These, well, the Arts and Crafts Club, we meet Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays on a very regular basis. Every except the next Friday, of course, and the week after
Right.
that will be Christmas and New Year. But Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, and then Thursdays, once a month, we have a special guest teacher. And today I'm not the special guest teacher; I'm the leader. But we usually have a guest instructor come on Thursday once a month. And since we'll be crocheting, we might be doing like a crochet every other week. And I may be asking guest teachers for that, but I may be leading some, depending on how many ideas I can come up with. I'll need people like Dorothy to give me ideas.
Well,
Okay, so
one
I'm at
day
the-
we ended up just the two of us, so we just had a nice chat, and that's how this came up.
Exactly. So now I'm at the very end. I'm at the last, and I'm going to take my, I'm just going to cut my thread off and leave a tail just about the same length as I left that. Okay, so now I've got this little curly mess here. It's not a mess, but it needs to be blocked. So I just take a little water. This is not a little, that's a bunch of water. I'm trying to, I don't want to, that's too wet. I usually have a mister that's a lot. Anyway, you mist it lightly instead of dousing it like I did. And I've got a little iron, if it's still hot, I don't know. And you just block it. You just kind of, you want to get that.
Get it straight.
Yeah. Using some, like not a spray, you can use a spray starch or like, what's that, a finish, that would be okay too. And this is like one of those little craft irons, so it doesn't have as much oomph as my regular iron, but this is good for this table here. Now I've got it blocked. There it is, it's adorable. Okay, so what I could do, and that's a good size, that'll work. And it's got enough stretch, but the little, but that side, that edge gives a little something to make it a little firmer. And I can go up with a bigger, I like these bigger buttons because I think it gives the elastic a bigger, much more to grab onto. I'm just trying to find two matching buttons. That's the challenge.
Yeah, I have a big tub of buttons. Finding two that match is the most difficult thing.
Exactly. Or what I could do is I like the idea of Dorothy's of using the red to, I like that red and purple. I think that's cool. They don't have to be matching. They can just be, or they don't have to go with the red. They can.
Fun.
Contrast, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fun. So you can take what you could do, this would be for the Christmassy one, that has green. But I found this yarn that I thought it would be fun to crochet, but it's way too thin. It's Egyptian cotton, really super thin. It's the number,
Oh, yeah.
it's tiny. So I want to use that to make my, to sew on the buttons. Why not?
Pretty though. Yeah.
It's a pretty color, yeah, very pretty color, purple. So I have a little needle here. And what I like to do is get that needle, now threading a needle is always there we go, got it. And I just tied a big, okay, there, that's probably enough thread. And I'm terrible. I just do like, when I tie off, I just do this. I just kind of roll it. I know that's not I'm sure Elaine or someone that sews could probably tell me a better way to make a knot, but
Never works.
this is all I know.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to learn. I always am willing to learn. So on this side of this, we have the wrong side, or, it's not wrong, but it's the side that we want to sew our buttons on. We want that to be our finished side. And you could take I didn't do this, but I could take my little ends and I'm going to kind of feed them through. You can do this with a needle, but I'm just going to use a crochet hook right now. I'm just going to kind of feed it through to kind of where I'm going to have the buttons live. And I'm doing that just so I can kind of stitch the end in a little bit, and it kind of covers it up. I'm just going to put that right in here. So that's where that lives. Well, it will live. And then same thing here. I'll just feed that through so that I'll just kind of conceal those threads or those ends. And plus, it just, in wrapping it around a couple of times or moving it around will
Lock it in.
those frayed ends from showing. And if you just do it on the side where your button is going to be on top of it, no one will even know it's there.
Okay,
I'm just going to do
that's a good
one.
idea. Because
Yeah,
I
so-
used to just weave it in.
Right. So
So-
then now we're going to just secure that even more. So now I have my little ends. They're kind of sticking out where my button will be. And at this point, I am going to cut them because I don't want to have to play with them after. I'm going to cut them with some length though, like I've got maybe 1/4 of an inch on both of them. And now I'm going to sew those buttons right on top of them. And that's going to fortify that, keep that from coming apart. So when I start my button, I'm going to actually go through the kind of a couple of little strands here. I don't have the sharpest needle here, but just going to start my thread. And then bring it through the button, one of the holes. And it's better to have a 2-hole button probably than a 4-hole, just so you can get a better, you'll have a better grip on your extender or for the elastic. So now I'm just going to bring it through. And I don't mind having the purple on the other side because I think it's pretty. I'm just going to bring these through, but there won't be anything frayed looking, but I'll still see that decorative purple on the other side. I'll probably maybe pull it through. Maybe give it 5 times because it needs to have some strength.
Yeah, because it'll get pulled.
Right, wouldn't you think about 5 times, Dorothy, at least?
Sounds good, yeah.
Okay. And if there's another way, I mean, if there's got to be a way, I know that if you wrap the thread around the button, makes kind of a shank, you can do that too. But this doesn't seem to need that. I've noticed on mine, it didn't seem to need that. So I'm going to go inside and I'm going to just tie my button or tie it off. And the way I'm doing this is I'm just going to make a loop, basically I'm going to do another kind of a slip knot. I'm going to just take my needle through it a couple of times to just tie that off. And then just tighten it. Now, if I wanted to, I'm kind of one of those people who wants to put a little glue in there. I know that's a bad thing, but there's some fabric glue you can buy that's really just so that it doesn't have any chance of slipping off. There's the one button, and then just the other button with whatever thread you have, the other button on the other side. Now, here's another idea too that I wanted to show you. I'm not tying this thread off. I'm just going to leave it long. So I'm going to put it through the top of my piece here. And I'm just leaving enough of a tail so I can use it to tie off. So I've got like about 4 inches here. And then I'm going to bring it up through. So now I've got that 4-inch tail. And now I'm going to just go ahead and attach the button. And this is a way you can tie off a little more secure tie off on the button. I'm just going to hold that until I get enough tension on the thing.
And the 4 inches in the back of the.
Yeah, it's actually in the front. It's right under the button in between
front.
It's in the
Okay.
front.
Okay.
So we won't have any frayed, loose ends we have to cut off. And just get those little holes to be kind of straight. I'll go in 5 times at least. Now, I'm glad I bought this thin cotton because it's so pretty. It makes a neat decorative finish. So what I've done is it's gone through 5 times, and I'm going to bring my needle under the button in between the crocheted piece. And now I've got 2 ends to tie off. So I'm just going to take now I've got my 2 tails, and I'm just going to make a couple of knots, and then it should be good. It should be good to go, and it will be probably more secure than the other one. I'll just go around a couple of times and then trim off the ends underneath the button so we don't see those ends.
Well, that's a really tight way to do it.
Isn't that fun? That'll keep any of this frayed ends, and I think it will be it'll hold together, I think, longer than the other. Even though I think the other one's okay, it's just this one is a little bit better. So I've got those tied off. Maybe one more, the last knot, instead of going around the button, just take another knot on the same side you just made one, and just do one more just for good measure. And then trim it right in between the button and your crocheted piece. And now you've got, there we are, now it's there. So now we have a little cute extender.
Very nice.